Welcome to the MoCo Pro interview, where myself, career coach, I pick someone of another professional who does something that I think is pretty interesting, and we're going to interview them and just kind of figure out how they got to this position, what led them to this position, and their matriculation, their progress, their progression through this job. So the person I'm interviewing is none other than the
Wrong piece.
warm, the congenial, the life of the party, none other than Mr. Cory Turner.
Oh, thanks, man.
That's the clappers and stuff. Mr. Turner, I know, we know each other because we work together. We're both career advising coaches. But for the people who are going to be seeing this, would you mind giving us your name, your job title, your RIASEC code, and any, just for now, we're going to go with your name, your RIASEC, your industry, and your job title.
So my name is Cory Turner. My RIASEC is SAE, with a little, like the E and R are really close together. So SAE and R is right trailing behind. My industry is barbering and cosmetology. But what pays the bills on a daily basis is the career advising coach with MoCo CAP.
Got you. Okay. Now, for your RIASEC code, you said SAE. Can you explain what that is and just give us a little bit of how you feel you fall into those categories?
Man, SAE, social, being one of those people that like to help people. Even like I don't think that people really take the art or the craft of barbering um with that understanding of how it really transforms people and it helps them. It is huge social component. I know that, everybody looks at the last or the finished product or, even like the glitz and glamour of like Instagram right now. But the truth is it's a social moment. It's a moment where somebody can trust and relax because you got razor in your hand. It's like a sharp thing. And to build that level of trust with somebody, and it takes years, and people really, when they decide on a barber, I know with fellas, when they usually start, the barber is the barber. Like that's your guy that you can kind of, dump, things that are going on. And it's such an emotional transformation. You come in the chair with the weight of the world on you. And, especially people don't take into account that mental health for men and physical care and things like that come into play. So being a social person, seeing that transformation it's a natural thing when you get a fresh cut. Yeah, you look good, you feel good, but it also does a little bit to your internal. It just stirs you up a little bit. And then the artistry of it is barbering. Like every hairstyle or hair like shape is unique, and being able to see where it's supposed to go and how to navigate those ebbs and flows of like a person that may have a certain situation. Like you might have somebody who has growth swirls back here, but then up here they have like another swirl. And so like you got to be able to navigate, how do I make sure that is evenly done? And that's artistry, because you're taking something that's flawed and trying to turn it into something that looks a little bit more that honestly just moves with what you're doing. And then the that enterprising, man, you got to be able to talk to people. Like I can't just go in there and give them my level of understanding and my doctrines of life. I'm actually learning from them. So it's a conversation and an enterprising person. Sometimes people want to come in here. I had a dude come in a couple weeks ago, and he was like, "Yeah, I want the south of France," but I'm like, man, like your hair ain't grown like that. Like you just came in here from a boosie fade. Like, so you gotta come with a little bit more growth. And so like he was like, all right, but being an artist, you have to learn how to find that median with it. And again, you trying to help them to look what they think is their best. So you're helping them navigate that flow and stuff like that. So when you barbering, it takes a little bit of, I would say, those components to do it. And that's why I said that realistic part, that being able to translate what's in your head or what the image you're trying to get to onto that scalp is sometimes a challenge, but it's fun.
Okay, that's a great answer. how did you what started you toward the path of barbering and cosmetology, and how did that um how did that kind of help you guide you through your maneuvering through youth development, and what led you to being a career coach? So these are like you're on two different paths. At what point did they ever intersect, and how have the two journeys affected you?
Oh wow. So what's funny is I've been around cosmetology my whole life. My grandmother was a licensed cosmetologist and a certified nurse. So, but my grandmother is the first person that kind of taught me how to like you don't have to do the street stuff to hustle. So she just was like, you just got to be about the work, and if you produce good products, you good. Like she was a confectionery artist, aka a cake maker and pie baker. And then she had her cosmetology going on. Like downstairs was a whole salon. We had like what we had two salon blow dryers, we had two sinks that did shampooing in the basement, and then she had her huge mirrors, so I was around that. And so you kind of I kind of was used to that part. And she used to cut my hair with like the clippers that you had to actually squeeze like that. And then I got older and I found out my father was a barber, and his stepfather was a barber. So like getting around being around it, I was like, oh, okay. And when my father came home from prison, he was like, that was our Saturday. Our Saturday morning was 8 o'clock in the morning. We're at somebody's house and he's mobily cut. He's doing barbering. So I watched how he would talk to people and joke with them and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, and at the end they giving him money and a tip. And I was like, oh, okay. So when it was like I moved back to Emerson Village when I was probably around like maybe 12. And in the middle, that was during like when like crack was like real big. And so, you know, as Big said, you either sell rock or you got a wicked jump shot. And being a kid, being like I was kind of out there in the streets, but like my father was like one of the promises that he always made me make was that I ain't going to jail. Because visiting him for 8 years, going up and down 70 for all them years, he was like, don't do it. So I was like, all right. And I kind of conditioned in my heart, I don't want to be that type of dude, but I was still like pulled by like peers. And then like my father had his own clippers, and one day my father's back went up, and he took me on a took me to go cut somebody's hair, and his back went out, and he was like, yo, can you finish the cut? And I'm like, he was like, you've been watching me long enough, I know you know what to do, and I'll talk you through it. And that was the first time I cut somebody's hair, and I was like 12 years old. And so
That's
like
crazy.
I was sitting there like looking at him. And what's funny is I'm left-handed, so it's weird because everything that I'm doing mirrors. He had like I had to do it the flip side. So I was like, am I doing it right? And then scissoring, he showed me how to do it, and like I learned on the fly. And so like what happened then is that I started having enough bravery to mess up on myself. So I would go in there and I would cut my shape up and I would mess my hair up. I balded myself a couple times and all that. And people would be like, what's going on? And I'll be like, oh yeah, I just felt like cutting it off. But that was like, that was the training ground. And so I just kept doing it. Like, and then what happened is around like maybe 14, 15 years old, I made the decision that, I'm gonna start doing it a little bit more. So like my friends would come through and be like, yo, can I get this? And my father was like, all right, let me show you how to do it. And then he was right there, like walking me through it constantly, constantly. And then I had a couple of older guys that were like mentors to me. And he was like one of the guys is named Ernest Shaw. He's like a world-renowned artist from Baltimore. And he was my mentor in art, but he also used to cut my hair too sometimes. And he was like, you can do multiple things. And like having those people tell me I could do more than one thing and be talented and want more than one thing, you know, because school was just school. But like trying to get out of trying to stay away from like my friends dying and stuff like that, I kind of found barbering and art and all these things as an escape, because it was easier for me to help. So that's how that happened. And then now that I'm older, it's like honestly, I live by the moniker is, be who you needed when you were young. So when the intersectionality of barbering met my career coaching, it was because at my school, at Benjamin Banneker, they one always be like, yo, Mr. Turner, who cuts your hair every week? Like they would see me and be like, did you get another haircut? And I'd be like, I did it. And they were like, oh, snap, you a barber? And I'm like, yeah. And it was like they didn't understand that you could be more than one thing. And then like when you present a certain way, when you present like I'm not losing in life or frustrated in life, you know what I mean? I like they started asking me questions, and next thing you know, I was like, well, they was like, well, can you show me? And that's like literally how our boys mentoring kind of bloomed and blossomed out of that, because the kids kind of started coming in and be like, yo, I'm down bad. Can I get a haircut? And I'm like, yeah, you ain't had a cut in a couple of weeks. Let me do it, because they don't even understand that that's a sign of like depression in the black community when you don't take care of yourself and you ain't doing the bare minimum to even just, get a shape up or something like that. Some people don't have it financially. So it was easy for me to say, I got you, young boy, and then like showing them the process in front of them, it gave them the like the inquisition of saying, all right, let me ask, how can I learn how to do that? And that's where like it's been going.
That's amazing. The story of like your first cut, that sounds straight out of a movie, like a movie script where, the father can't go on and he's like, you gotta do it. And you trying to match it up. But that being your origin story, it fits. And I guess my next question is, what have you learned from this skill set that has that you've seen jump in at different times, like just meeting different people, being able to hold conversations, making people feel seen and valued, because
Mm.
that's a big part of what you do as a career coach. But you've been doing that, and you've seen it done for so many years. What other transferable skills have you taken from barbering that you've put into the rest of just your life in general?
One, getting people like learning how to navigate conversations. Like getting to a place, because you gotta have somebody in your chair and they could be tense. So even learning how to engage people and learn how to like read people. Like so like getting a person, like being a career coach is tough because I'm in a middle school where it's in a area where a lot of kids don't interact with um like male figures that try to come across, like even though the school has principals and teachers and male figures in the building, it's not a lot of them that are concerned about what their life looks like after school. Most people want their subject matter taken care of. I'm talking about their life. That's the biggest subject matter. So like really caring about people. Like I really like, I think with barbering, you care about people not just to get a return client, but you care about them because this can be a consistent client. My cut might not be 100% every time, but my conversation and that confidentiality that they feel when they get to sit down and say, all right, it's me and you, boom, let's chop it up. And being able to do that in a career coaching situation is even more helpful, because like me and the kids, we bond, you know what I mean? And it causes me to be like, all right, like I met one kid, he came in and he would have fresh twist every week, but he was growing out the sides. And I asked him, I was like, yo, Jay, you growing out the sides, or what's going on? He was like, nah. He was like, I really don't have it right now to go to the barbershop. I was like, who's doing your twist? He's like, my mom do my twist. And I'm like, well, okay. And he was like, well, who cut your hair? And I was like, me. He's like, you think you can cut my hair? And I'm like, yeah. And what happened is he was like, thank you. And what's crazy is he was one of those quote unquote high flyers. And I
Mhm.
was like, all right, the deal is I'll cut your hair, but you got to go to class. You got to be on time for class this week. And so I cut his hair. I'm no, he went to class and had a little check sheet from each of his teachers. And on Friday, he gave me the sheet and said that he had been there every day on time. Boom, I cut his hair. The next week, I was like, the standard is now that me and your teachers expect you to be in class. He was like, all right, I got you. And so it became our running thing. He was like, I'm going to class. Can I get a cut? I'm going to class on time. Can I get a cut? Now, are you
Mhm.
participating? All right, bring that D up to at least a C B. All right, and that's what he did. And so like it becomes one of those things where you build relationships and build that culture within the place. So yeah, that's where I've been taking it.
Mm. How do you stay? How do you stay? Like, how do you keep your skills sharp? no pun intended. And how do you stay organized, man, with like with all that you do? Because people think, well, if you're not in the culture, or you've never been to a black barbershop, you think people just come in and like it's such, you have to be so organized if you want to be successful at it. In addition to the people aspect, how do you stay organized with your barbering and your day job, so to speak? But how do you balance all of it and stay on top of everything that you need to stay on top of with the family?
All right, so yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is I'm older, so now I know my boundaries and parameters. I didn't at one point. I would be cutting hair up until like maybe like I would say like 20, I would say 2017, 2018. I was one of those people that like my Saturday would be from 7 in the morning and I would not stop cutting until probably, you know, 2, 3 in the morning. Like I would do that and then wake up on
Mm.
Sunday. And after I would wake up in the Sunday morning. I would probably get a couple cuts in, go to church, then have some more in the evening because I was chasing money. But I think that sometimes being too kind of gullible and open, and it doesn't make lend to exclusivity. So what I did was I learned how to cut down, and when I cut down, I was like, all right, this is what's going to happen. Like I'm gonna do Saturday mornings from 8 to 1, and then the rest of the day is family time. In the evenings, when I come home from career coaching, I still sometimes do like basketball training and spend time with my family. But sometimes I'll say, all right, so I'll cut hair on maybe Monday evening. I'll schedule 2 cuts, and then Wednesday I might schedule 2 cuts, and then Friday I may do like a few before I leave out, like and go out for like date night or hanging out with my friends type thing. So like I balance my schedule. Like I really put the boundaries up about like, hey, this is what I can and can't do because I don't think I want to give a half tail product. So I need to make sure that I'm the key contributor to that by saying, all right, these are my limitations.
Mm. With that being said, because barbering it's not like you get a set paycheck, where you're like every week, yeah, I can count on this money being here. How do you adjust your compensation to your clientele and based on your skill set? It's not like your day job where you applied, you saw like this is the money we're gonna pay you, and you can either take it or leave it. You have to put a bit more effort into your market strategy, really. Like how do you go about figuring all that out and to where it's a worthwhile endeavor for you?
So a lot of things when you got a passion, it's not always about the income, it's about the outcome. So like a lot of times, um, I really do. I've had the same like I have a rolling client list of about 20 that's guaranteed in a month. I'm gonna see them twice a month. You know what I mean? But what happens in that, you have your ones that fall off and things like that. Again, it's quality service, good conversation, and making sure you do it in a manner that which they want to come back. I think that a lot of times, again, you have to balance it, and you have to put yourself at a price point the way you feel respected. Because a lot of times, just because it's cheap don't mean it's good, and then just because it's good, it shouldn't be cheap. And so like we have to be able to balance that. So yeah. I try to balance that as best as I can.
You mentioned something earlier about like barbering on social media. I love watching people get their haircuts. It's like it's a before or after. It's a transformational process. Um, I don't know if you open your process up to social media, or if you do, or if you put yourself out there like that. But is that something that you've thought about doing?
Yeah, because what's funny is a lot of my clients don't care. They love the transformation part. They love to see like how I do the stuff. Like they like to say, boom, this is what I look like before, this is what I look like after. But they really be like, yo, you need to like record when you're talking to me because like it's
Mhm.
like they be like, yo, you be pouring life into me. You don't understand it. Like it's so much like so during the pandemic, I moved all my stuff into my garage. So I got a chair in there. I got the little steamer and all that. So I got, my stuff right in there. And so one of the things, because I grew up in the hood and all that, but I realized that life is not, promised, and people aren't, disposable. I'll be like, all right, bro, I love you, man. Have a good one. So the dude across the alley, who I don't even know, he always see me cutting hair. So he be like, yo, you always busy, blah, blah, blah. But he always hears me say, I love you to my clients, and like, like, be good. And he was like, one day he was like, I don't get no I love you. And I'm like, love you too, bro. And what happened is we started a bond through that. And a lot of times that's what people want, is the fact that they feel that comfort and that conversation. And sometimes I'm like, all right, but I haven't really like set up for that, like to be like exposed. Because truthfully, I don't know, with that windfall comes that part where we're like, all right, now do people want to come in and just, like, I don't want to, I want to make sure that my 20 consistent people aren't phased out by just chasing, that. But it has been on my mind to start the barber conversation, because it is the one place of like, it's one of the last vestiges of solitude and masculinity, I think, too.
How do you you're a black man,
Mhm.
and I'm assuming most of I'm I probably shouldn't assume, but I'm going to ask: are most of your clients black men? Are they
I
within
would
the
say
demographic you yourself represent?
about 70%. Yeah.
So, how do you navigate being a black man yourself and knowing how you yourself interact with vulnerability, how you are perceived to interact with vulnerability, and being in a vulnerable space to where, like you said, I got to raise. This could potentially be harmful, but letting the emotional guard down and building up, because it's not something our demographic does. Some of us do willingly, but I've seen you interact with people, and that guard definitely comes down. How do you navigate that?
So it's a saying that that's in, I think, The Art of War. It says it's better to be a warrior in the garden than a gardener in the war. And so I look at it like this: the vulnerability is knowing what you bring. Like, I look at it like, I got no heaven, hell, or jail cell to put you in. So like, I have no room to judge. I'm too messed up. I'm too fallible. And so like, at least if I'm a fall, I want to fall forward. And one of the things I always give my kids is their license to fail. And the acronym FAIL stands for frequent attempts in learning. And then I say, I want you to fly. That means fully love yourself. And I think that when you get to the place of competency about what you've been through, you don't come in and try to like put your judgment and your doctrine on people. What you do is you say, all right, I know what I've been through and I know what worked for me. This might not work for you, but look, if we want to keep on living, we gotta keep on giving. So that means that I gotta be vulnerable, and somebody gotta do it. I feel like, meekness is strength under control. I can shake your hand as a man, and it's gonna have a different grip than I would if I was shaking the hand of a 2 year old, and a different, and as an 11-year-old. It's different levels of strength. And I think that vulnerability, especially because I've learned that like that term is sometimes weaponized in a way when somebody just want to know your dirt, but when somebody want to know your heart, that's different. And I think that that's one of the things that I've learned is I don't let people fall too in love with my hand that they don't catch my heart. I make sure that I lead with my heart, and what I supply from my hand is respected. And then once I feel that disrespect, I disconnect. I ain't gonna be like, you gone and you this, but I know now that there's a level that I have to create, or a boundary that I have to like put up, just to let them know, hey, I want to be vulnerable and we can be vulnerable, but there has to be a level of respect.
That's a good answer. Um, for the people who are watching this, whether they be other coaches or students, give them something to take away from you, whether it be about you personally or an anecdote or anything. I guess something that they can leave with saying, you know what, that's Cory Turner.
Honestly, just be who you needed when you were growing up. I think that we forget that. I think that we're all growing up. and this is life. We not getting out of it alive. So like we going like you might as well enjoy it, enjoy what you do, enjoy the people around you, keep learning and keep growing. But don't be no sucker. Like don't be to the point where you just feel like people can play with you and get over. Learn how to articulate yourself. Cause I didn't used to talk like this when I was a kid. I would just get angry and just blow up. So that's why I have a level of patience for, kids that's in my demographic or in the like that come from impoverished situations, because I look at them like, they're still navigating life, and so are we. So I look at it, like if you were reading 100 chapter book, if I'm 46 years old, so I'm in chapter 46. If you walked in on chapter 45 and a half and you just read up to 46, then what happens is you could choose to read the rest, or you can walk away and saying, I don't want to know. But what if you learned what happened in chapters 1 through 45, to say, hey, what made that person that person? So reading people and learning more about their stories is a dope thing. That's what I chase.
Mm. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time, Mr. Turner. I really appreciate you sitting down with me and just giving me some game about, your journey, your story, who you are, where you've been, and, where you're going. So thank you. I appreciate it. And
Appreciate it, man.
yeah.
All right, bro. Thank you, man. Thanks for having me.